We got a ground strap for it, should take care of everything.
Absolutely.
Now, we're gonna be getting ready to put the engine back in the car.
You gotta get me something better that doesn't fall apart.
Welcome to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoatings. On this episode of Sam's Garage, Sam and special guest Travis install the front accessory drive system for the Jeep Rock Crawler. Then Sam and Doug install the engine, transmission bell housing, and radiator in the Alpha One GTO. The 67 Cadillac DeVille gets new shocks and springs on all four corners. Then Sam installs a new custom drive shaft in the 67 Camaro. Sam and Travis install the accessory drive system on the Jeep Rock Crawler. The kit they chose includes an AC condenser, alternator, and power steering pump. Everything comes pre-assembled from Low Car Performance, making the installation process a breeze.
Hey Sam, what are you doing?
Hey, I'm just putting on a valve cover on this engine. What you got there?
Well, I've got the LS Classic front drive system. Figured we put it on this engine. Let's see what you think.
Absolutely, I can't wait to install and see how it looks.
Awesome.
Travis, this is a very nice kit. I love the brackets. Is that powder coated?
That's actually powder coated. It's one of our textured satin finishes.
Very nice touch.
Yeah.
Now, is this the way you guys ship them? Already assembled?
It is.
This makes it really nice because for those of us who don't like to look at instructions until we get into a bind.
Yes, that's for sure. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
This is perfect. So the AC one, we should be able to just bolt up like this and not have to take apart the brackets, right?
Yes, that is correct. We've got some spacers that go behind this. So our kit is made to use an F-body, early F-body water pump. So we've got some spacers that space the brackets out to use the AC bracket and the tensioner.
Now it looks like you got some nice sanding components here. Your pulleys also, everything here made in America?
Made in America. We try to use the best.
That's awesome. Yeah. Very good stuff. I got me a 7/16 drill so we can waddle out the hole a little bit on that shim so that we can clear the block where the head is.
Well, Sam, what do you think so far?
I like it very much. It looks very good. It's totally different compared to all the other ones you see out there. But the best part about it, to be honest, is the fact that you guys assemble it so that there is no guesswork, really. That way the end user can take it apart and put it back together without any guessing.
There is instructions. We just finished up, so it will come with instructions.
Now, why didn't we do this on the engine in the Jeep?
Well, we've got an engine plate on that one. So we'll have to do something different. We've got some air compressors for that.
Power steering pumps as well.
Exactly, yeah. We're going to do something different with that. I think that may be a new product later on, possibly, as far as an off-road kit.
Now, this particular assembly, we are going to have to take apart so that we can put the main plate onto the head and then reassemble it just like we see it.
Yes.
And we have an AC compressor, power steering, and we have the alternator. And that is your tank, correct?
That is our tank. We do make that tank in-house.
But you also have the different combinations. Like, let's say if I didn't want AC, if I just wanted the power steering and alternator, it's there.
Yes.
If I just wanted the alternator and I had mechanical steering and no AC, it's there.
Or alternator and AC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's very nice. And all with the same good-looking brackets.
Yes, sir.
I love the tank. That is nice.
It is pretty nice, yeah.
It fits better, its easeability is better, and it looks a lot better.
Right. So you notice this engine doesn't have a water pump on it.
Correct.
Unfortunately.
Especially an F-body water pump.
It's an early F-body.
With the big pulley in the front.
Exactly.
All the supercharger guys use those.
So it's 98 to 02 F-body, early F-body pump. The good thing is you can change the pump without having to take the brackets off. As far as serviceability, you know, 2 bolts on your alternator, 2 bolts on your, well, 4 on your AC, and You can take about anything off.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That
it's
makes
really
it
easy
very
to work
nice for
on.
the end user. You know, Travis, I've installed a lot of front accessory drive systems, and this was the easiest one. And I think it's because you guys ship them out fully assembled. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
Right. We do try as far as that goes, yes.
Now, if the water pump were in place, we would have one boss that would finish up the hardware here, and the bottom bolt of the tensioner is going to go on the second boss that's on the water pump.
Yes, and the hardware is included in this kit as well. So we've got some LS Classic stuff, intakes, and some valve covers. Some Clayton Machine Works coil covers. I think you'll really like those.
Well, hopefully they're as easy as installing the front drive system.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. With the accessories complete on the engine for the Alpha One GTO, Sam and Doug begin the process of installing the engine, transmission bell housing, and radiator. The time spent in the mock-up stages of this build is now paying off in the final stages of the project.
Doug, this accessory kit looks so good.
It really does, Sam. It's all made out of billet aluminum. It just looks absolutely wonderful.
And you know, they use tough stuff components, and we both know how good those are. They're going to get you home no problem. Now, we're getting ready to put the engine back in the car. And it's a good idea that when you're doing something like this, you have an engine swap, you have accessories, and we have a thick radiator, that you do some measuring before you put everything in. What I did was I took a tape measure from the front bolt hole of the motor mount over to the radiator. And from my measurements, I should have like 3-inch air gap between the radiator fans and our accessory kit.
That'll be perfect.
All we got to do now is put on our engine brace so that we can put it on the hoist and put it in the car.
One of the tips that you want to be real careful on, we just got done having a beautiful paint job put on this car. So as we get ready to drop the motor down, we went ahead and we used some packing blankets, lay them over on the fenders, because the last thing you want to do is to scrape any of your fenders and have any problems. So we've got everything all laid up. Now we're just lowering the motor in to make sure everything fits correctly.
Well, Doug, it's installed.
Yeah, it really went in a lot easier than I thought, Sam. This thing just really slid right in. We did a great job in mocking everything up.
Absolutely, but I have a feeling the bell housing is not going to fit.
Well, let's
I
go
don't see a lot of room.
Yeah, I know it's real tight, but let's go ahead and pull it out and see what we're going to have to change or what we have to mock up on it.
All right.
To make it work.
I got your bell housing here, so let's see how it fits.
I don't believe it, Sam. That's fantastic. It just squeaks in there.
Talk about luck, and we can still get to all our hardware. And you know, the T5 transmission we're going to be using from American Powertrain is low key, very compact, big geared 5-speed. So it looks like when you put it here, it's going to fit. We're going to cut these brackets, out, make our own cross member.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll get lucky enough to put the shifter right there. But if not, they make a lot of offset 360-degree shifters. We're going to be able to put it right in that hole.
Yeah, that'll work out fantastic.
Now all we got to do is bring it down and see if the radiator fits.
Yeah. So far, Sam, all of this prep work we've done has really worked out well.
Absolutely. And you know what? Anytime you're building a car like this, there's more prep work than anything else.
Yeah, for all you guys that take on a project like this, take your time, lay everything out, do all that prep work, measure everything. If you do that, it's going to really save you a lot of time when you're putting everything together. Sam and I spent a lot of time on this, but right now everything's going together just fantastic.
And you get to enjoy your investment that much longer. All right, Fresh, I got you a really nice radiator. It's a 4-row, all aluminum with a shroud and 2 fans. It's pretty thick, but let's see how it fits.
It looks great.
Doug, this thing looks really good. It fits well, got plenty of clearance between the accessory kit and the fans.
You know, Sam, this absolutely looks fantastic. I'm just so excited to see how everything's coming together. I mean, it's great.
You know, engine swap can be really stressful, but in this case, I think we're trucking along.
We are.
Sam's 67 DeVille is back for an upgrade to the front and rear shocks and springs.
If you guys have been keeping up with my Cadillac DeVille 1967, I went from an original 429 big block heavy iron engine to an all aluminum 6.2 liter LS3 small block. Even though I changed out the transmission from a lighter 350 to a bigger, heavier 4L80, I created a problem because, as you can see, the front end will not drop. The weight difference between the two applications is so much that when the lift arm leaves the frame and the tire is already on the ground, that spring will not compress. Now, what I could do is go into a catalog and purchase some springs, and let's say I do the measurements and I want to lower it 3 inches. Well, if I were to just get some lowering springs for a DeVille 3 inches, it's not going to do very good because the weight difference is so big, it may only give me 1 inch. What I need in this case is a custom spring company like Jamco Parts. And what they do is they've got all the calculations and specs for the different components, as in a vintage air, the Pro Charger that's on this car, the LS3 engine. They can do the calculations and tell me exactly what spring this car will need to go from the factory ride height down to maybe 1 inch. You're going to need a place like Jamco Parts because they're the only ones that's going to be able to make this Cadillac look the way it should and ride the way it should. Not only that, but they've got in-house high-quality shocks like Bilsteins that you can put on your car and make it ride that much better. When you're removing coil springs, like in our case here, you don't want to use a jack stand. It gets a little bit dangerous. You want to use a floor jack, bringing you close to the ground, and you want to put the jack at the furthest point of the control arm. That'll give you the best leverage to be able to get that spring out of the car. This upper bushing, the weight of the vehicle is up and the shock has fallen. So you want to make sure to crush that upper bushing, but not too much because you'll split it. But not too little, because then when the car comes down and the shock goes up, you'll have play there. In our case, the Bilstein stopped and crushes it perfect, allowing you not to go too far. But there are other shocks that will not do that, so it's up to you to know when to stop. In some cases, when you guys are doing springs in the rear, like on a Mustang Fox body or something, depending on what's holding the upper arms together, you may want to do this one side at a time. But because my upper arms are keeping my axle in place and everything seems pretty solid, it won't shift left to right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and knock them both out at the same time. Now, as you can see, I got my jacks all the way down, and these are still a little bit tight. The OEM spring's gonna be a little bit tight, so you wanna be careful. The aftermarket spring that goes back in won't be so bad. The front's gonna be a lot worse than the rear. Now, my insulators for the springs are, can't believe, over 50 years old, in perfect shape, still pliable, no cracks. These are hard to find, especially today with the shortage of supplies. So I can reuse these. Make sure to reuse them because they do keep the suspension quiet. All right, now as you can see, it's going to be much easier installing the new Jamco springs than it was removing the OEM springs, because look at the height. I got plenty of room above the axle for both the insulators and the springs, so those just basically slip right in. Anytime you guys are installing a coil spring, there's going to be a groove, whether it's a new car, old car, front or rear. There's going to be a groove that accepts the coil. Make sure to place the coil in that groove, because if you don't, your ride height will be different depending on where you put that. So it's very important to not skip that step. Well, the DeVille sits pretty much ride height, just 1 inch lower. The front's gonna settle just a little bit. This car from the factory rides right on top of the front wheel and cuts the rear wheels in half. And with those Bilstein shocks, it's gonna pretty much ride like a Cadillac. So if you guys are building a resto mod or doing an engine swap in any kind of a classic or even a modern car, make sure to call Jamco Parts, because they're gonna have the custom springs for you to make the ride and look that you're looking for.
Sam walks us through the process of measuring and ordering a new custom drive shaft for the 67 Camaro. Inland Empire Driveline makes the ordering process straightforward and easy. Once the new drive shaft arrives, Sam shows how simple it is to install with the proper tools.
Hey Jeffrey, how are you? This is Sam. I'm getting ready to do that 67 Camaro. Okay, go to education zone. Oh yeah, I see powertrain setup, all right. Okay, a lot of good information here, wow. Page 7, all right, yeah, I see that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and print out page 7. I'll fill it out and get it over to you, and I'll be waiting for my drive shaft. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, I appreciate it. Have a good one. We are at the time where we need a drive shaft for our 67 Camaro. If you guys remember, we did a 5-speed conversion using American powertrain. So now I've gone to Inland Empire Driveline to get myself a new shaft. Now they've got stock ones, they've got steel shafts, they've got aluminum shafts. Even if you have a 2-piece shaft, they can add a center support for you. So in our case, we're gonna need a custom shaft. So I just got off the phone with Jeffrey. He showed me exactly where I need to go on the website to print out the sheet that I need to fill out all my specs. Now I'm gonna show you guys a proper process you need to take to get a custom drive shaft made for you. This is where we're gonna be measuring the drive shaft, and this is very important. You wanna take your time and do this correctly. First thing you have to do is if you're up on a lift, you have to make sure to compress the rear suspension, making sure the axle is where it's going to be at when the car is sitting still on its wheels. That way you'll get a proper measurement. Then what you want to do is read the instructions on my page. Is going to be page 7. I got a single drive shaft. So first measurement we're going to take is going to be from the flange on the seal all the way to the surface right here of the yoke on the pinion, and that's going to give me the center line of the bearing cap. And I've got 50.5 inches. So right here on measurement X, I'm gonna go and write down 50.5 inches. Then I'm gonna measure the depth of the yoke. Just right here, that's measurement Y, 1/8 of an inch. Write down 1/8 of an inch. Another measurement we're gonna do is gonna be the distance between here and here, okay? And then you can check off right here which one you have. Then, right here where it says differential make and model, 67 Camaro, and the transmission make and model. Another measurement that's important to take is going to be the number of splines on the output shaft of the transmission. The model number of the transmission is not going to tell you this. You have to physically count them with the screwdriver. Make sure you count it 2 or 3 times. It could be anywhere between 27 and 30 splines, and those splines are small, so it's very easy to make a mistake. All right, I got my drive shaft in from Inland. I decided to go with the aluminum one. It's gonna handle all the horsepower I'm gonna make with this 396, and it's lightweight. Now, anytime you guys are installing a drive shaft, you wanna make sure to keep the transmission in neutral and the e-brake turned off on the rear end so that both items are moving and spinning. That way it makes it really easy for you to be able to install the drive shaft. I'm gonna put the yoke in first, and come over here and put the drive shaft in its yoke. Now, it's very important that within the box, you guys pull this out and read it. This is gonna give you the torque specs for your U-joint, depending on the diameter, which one that you're gonna use. Now, because you can't get a torque wrench in here, you're gonna have to use your head. When you're going to install the nuts, you wanna crush the crush washer, then go about another 1/8 of a turn, and you should be at the proper torque spec. Here's the fun part. Time to test out all the new parts that we installed on this car. That 5-speed should be a huge improvement over the 4-speed slush box. The aluminum drive shaft should make a little bit more power considering we removed some reciprocating weight.